everybody, and welcome to Whimsically Wicked, a reading duet. My name is Haley, and I'm the whimsical half.
And my name is Darian, and I'm the wicked half.
Welcome to a new book episode. We've got a couple books that we read that have new release dates, and Daria also got a bunch of books in the mail that she's going to show off. You have a problem?
Yeah, my problem, this is a conglomeration of book boxes and then new releases.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really invested in a lot of new series. I'm just completing the ones I currently own until the summer, in which case there's new ones.
Right.
Because there are a lot of Harry Potter fan fictions getting published this year.
All
There's
right.
3 of them.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
So those will all be... There's going to have to be like a fanfic to book shelf added in, I think, somewhere to really...
It is shocking that, there's not a lot of space left on these bookshelves.
I know. I feel like I also have a 10-book series coming from Kickstarter at some point that I bought like a year ago. That's, I think, finally shipping in the next couple of weeks, months.
What series is that?
It's by Stephanie Holmes, and I do not remember the name of the actual series.
Okay.
But it's her little murder mystery cozy romance series.
Okay, fun.
It's adorable. It's also book themed, so like each one is named after a classic book. So like one of those called like Plot and Bothered or oh god. I don't know all the names off the top of my head. I'm too tired for this. But it's really good. It's a good cozy like murder mystery, wide shoes. The characters in it, except for the main character, are from books. So, like one of them's Heathcliff, one of them's Moriarty, and then one of them is a like raven man creature shifter from from Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, okay, fun. I think I might have just put something together. Okay, so why choose? I've never understood why choose, but is it because it's like why choose? Like, why choose one?
Yeah. Why choose one when you can have them all?
That's why it's called that, dude. I've always thought it was such a dumb name. I had no idea.
Because the other term for it is reverse harem. And a lot of people find that one degrading, I guess. I don't actually understand why it's controversial. I'm sorry if I'm uneducated on this.
Yeah.
But why choose a reverse harem? It's pretty...
Why choose? That makes a lot more sense than... Yeah. I had never put that together.
Yeah. Why choose a boyfriend when you can have 3
right.
or 5?
Yeah.
Or 12.
Okay.
If you're adventurous.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, show us your books. What do you got?
Yeah. Okay. So, for my Canadians out there, this is from the Midnight Bookshelf. It is the Edge of Darkness series by Lee Rivers. They're really pretty. If you're looking on YouTube, I'll try to shine them. They've got like nice foiling on them, and they're paperbacks, which is really nice. And if you're Canadian, this is a Canadian book box.
Let's go.
Ships Canada Post if you're looking to support some Canadian small businesses.
As we should be right now.
Yes. As a Canadian, I'm definitely supporting the Canadian small business. They're a little pricey. We'll say that one was not cheap. The next one.
Okay.
Another book box. And this one I'm actually super excited for because these books
that's gorgeous.
are on my TBR. But this is Blood Orange and Black Rose by Karen Hale.
These are all romance books, right?
Karina Hale. Yes, they are all romance books. The first ones were dark romances, very dark romances.
Okay.
Not beginner dark romances. These ones, I believe, are dark in the sense that Dracula is a main character.
Okay.
So they're a little vampire-y. But they're stunning, and the dust jackets are reversible. So there's also this version of it.
Oh.
These are from Arcane Society. I got off their waitlist finally, and I will be canceling that subscription over my cold dead body. Because it took months. And if Mystic Box, if you ever let me off your waitlist, I promise I'll never, ever cancel that one either. Because I've been on that waitlist for almost 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
And then these last ones are the theme of today's episode.
This is what we're going to be talking about.
I got Deep End by Ali Hazelwood with the fun sprayed edges. This one was actually a gift to me from my friend when I went to go visit them, which just happened to be a happy accident. I've got Scythe and Sparrow from Brynne Weaver. 3rd installment. I actually had to take it off the shelf because I got this a couple weeks ago and I already put it away. But for the sake of the video. And then last but not least is The Charlie Method by Elle Kennedy.
Heck yes. And we're going to be talking about all three of those today. They all came out in February. All huge authors, huge romance authors, very successful and decorated authors. And so we read all of them.
Yeah. Well, some of them I'd power listen to.
That's true. You are. You read a lot more romance than I do, just in general.
Yes.
So I'm kind of curious on how this is going to end up going. I feel as though I have overdosed on smut in the past 2 weeks.
They were all real smut heavy. Yeah.
I'm glad you agree with that because I was worried because I don't really have much of a frame of reference other than the couple of romance books that I've picked up in the past. But oh my god.
They were also all on the kink spectrum.
Yes.
Like a lot on the kink spectrum.
Right.
I think there were different degrees of kink for sure, but like Deep End has a really good representation of BDSM and kink negotiation. Charlie Method is an MFM, so they're almost exclusively having threesomes. There's a couple 2-on-2s in there.
Yeah.
And then Scythe and Sparrow, they're just weird.
Just weird. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just unique humans. With unique preferences.
Yeah. So the way we're going to structure this, we're going to talk about all three books in a spoiler-free fashion. What I will say, though, about Scythe and Sparrow is that it is the third book in a trilogy. So if you haven't read the first two and you plan on reading it, I can't guarantee that we're not going to put a couple of those things in there.
Yeah, I'd also say for Charlie Method, it's also the third in a trilogy, but like there's less of a spoiler option in that one because they don't interconnect in a way that you have to read the other ones to understand what's happening.
Totally.
And then technically Deep End takes place in the same universe sphere as Love Hypothesis, and we will probably talk about that at some point. But
totally. But we're gonna do spoiler free, just like initial thoughts on each of them, and then we're gonna go into spoilers, and so you can listen to the first half before you read them, and then come back later if you would like. Let's do it in order of release date.
Okay.
So The Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, that was released on February 4th, 2025. Since then, on Goodreads, it has 112,000 ratings already, just over a month. And it's a 4.06 star rating so far. Little Goodreads summary for you all so you know what it's about. A competitive diver and an ace swimmer jump into forbidden waters in this steamy college romance from the New York Times bestselling author of The Love Hypothesis. Scarlett Vandermeer is swimming upstream. A junior at Stanford and a student athlete who specializes in platform diving, Scarlett prefers to keep her head down, concentrating on getting into med school and on recovering from the injury that almost ended her career. She has no time for relationships, at least that's what she tells herself. Swim captain, world champion, all-around aquatics golden boy, Lucas Blomkist thrives on discipline. It's how he wins gold medals and breaks records. Complete focus with every stroke. On the surface, Lucas and Scarlett have nothing in common, until a well-guarded secret slips out and everything changes. So, they start an arrangement, and as the pressure leading to the Olympics heats up, so does their relationship. It was supposed to be a temporary, mutually satisfying fling, but when staying away from Lucas becomes impossible, Scarlett realizes that her heart might be treading into dangerous water. I always find these Goodreads summaries a little bit like movie trailers almost. When you see a movie trailer and you're like, did I just watch the whole movie?
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's pushing it.
That one especially kind of gives away the whole plot of this book.
Yeah, but with romance books...
Are you here for the plot? Kinda.
But like with, I don't know, I have an opinion on romance books that I don't care so much about spoilers because you pick up a romance book to read about love, and the way that you get there is important. You know, the emotions that come up and the conflicts and the way people figure out how to grow and learn together and things like that. That's kind of the reason you read romances, not out of question if they're going to end up together.
Yeah.
Because good romance books have a happy ending, I guess.
Yeah, otherwise I don't think you'd have quite the following you would have.
No. So I feel like the spoilers are more about like the things that they struggle with in terms of it, not like are they going to end up together.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's what this is about. Spoiler free. What were your thoughts? What was your rating?
I like this one a lot more than Love Hypothesis.
Me too. Oh my
I
gosh.
yeah, wow, Love Hypothesis.
Do we think that so with Love Hypothesis, what we did is we read the fanfic that Ali Hazelwood wrote before it and then got the publishing deal to write Love Hypothesis. So it was a
Yeah.
very similar book from the fanfic to the actual published version, but we did the fanfic first, and
Yes.
it's a Raylo fanfiction, and we both genuinely like the fanfic a lot more than the actual book.
Yeah.
Do you think we like this one more because we didn't do a fanfic situation beforehand, or do you genuinely think it's better?
I genuinely think it's better. I think she's gotten well, I don't know if it counts as a spoiler. We'll decide. This is a 50 Shades of Grey fanfic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is another fanfic?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, I
okay.
don't know what the actual fanfic is because she's basically, I think it's a kind of an accepted thing that with Ali Hazelwood, a lot of her published work is her fanfics reskinned.
Got it. Okay. I didn't know
So
that all of them or like more than one of them.
I think it needs a number of them. Like, she
Okay.
might not have published them on like AO3 or FF or
But they all
Wattpad, but
may have started that way. Okay.
they all probably lived potentially, allegedly, in a Word doc as a fanfic, and
Yeah.
then now she can just pump out these books.
Okay, fair
Which,
enough.
like, get your hustle, girl.
Well, I mean, she spent all the time writing it.
Yeah, get your cash.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure this is 50 Shades fanfic.
Okay.
And
It does mention 50 Shades in
it
there,
does
doesn't it?
mention 50 Shades in
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah. And knowing Ali and her history, I was like, yeah,
yeah.
okay, this makes sense.
Checks out.
Um,
Which is it's the like the hole that you dig yourself into. Like this being 50 Shades of Grey fanfic, like 50 Shades of Grey
is
is
fanfic.
fanfic of Twilight.
I know.
It doesn't stop. Does everything just start at Twilight?
I allegedly in the publishing industry, apparently, because it is the most published fanfic to written content
That's crazy.
published in the world.
Who would have thought?
Although I think Harry Potter might start surpassing it in the next couple years here.
There's a lot of Harry Potter
Because there's 3 separate Harry Potter fanfics that are getting published this year that I know of.
It's crazy.
And you can tell what they are based on cover alone.
That's crazy.
But I don't think it was the fanfic this time. Like, I feel like it still kind of had it. This one stood as a story by itself a lot better than Love Hypothesis did, because Love Hypothesis lost a lot of its character, like backstories and traits, and like you couldn't see their growth because you didn't have the context of they're supposed to be Star Wars characters. This one, I think I could actually see them, like how they got to be the way they are, and what their backstories were, and their families and their friends.
Agreed.
What their parents did for work.
Literally.
Made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this one was genuinely a better book. I rated it a 3.5.
Okay.
It needed a little bit more plot for me.
Okay.
A little bit more strife, a little bit, like I know she was struggling in the first couple of pages. She's struggling with the yips. I don't know what you call it in diving, but like the mental block of not being able to do your thing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool and a really good way of creating some kind of internal strife. But I really like a villain.
Yeah, that's fair. What I really liked about this book, I actually rated it a 3.5 too, which is kind of surprising for me for a romance. But I think the thing that I use, especially when I'm doing a spectrum for books like this, is it was addicting. I think I read this in 2 days.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
I was pretty fast when reading it, and I enjoyed my time reading it. And what I don't like to do with romance books specifically, knowing that I am not the demographic for romance novels, and when I become too hypercritical about the little things that I shouldn't go into a romance novel expecting, I feel a little skeezy about it because I know that I'm not going to get those with those things. So I don't like to be too hypercritical for things like this. I found it addicting. I couldn't put it down. I thought it was really easy to read. I actually really like Ali Hazelwood's writing style. I think knowing that the only other Ali Hazelwood book that I've read is The Love Hypothesis, I can see the growth of an author in her character development, in the relationships that she has. I will also say, like, she is a diving athlete, and she's dealing with twisties. It's like what Simone Biles also dealt with gymnastics, like just not being able to feel
Yeah.
yourself in the air and know what you're doing and things like that. Um, there is an equivalent for that for weightlifting, and so I found that really relatable as like also an athlete myself. And I loved her storyline with her trying to deal with that after coming back from an injury and whatnot. So I think the relatableness also helped for me.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting take on a sport that I know nothing about.
Yeah.
And I feel like I learned some things. It was
Yeah.
like she didn't rely too heavily on the sports, and it wasn't like super in depth where
Mm-hmm.
you lost the plot.
You were saying though too that you learned a lot about a sport that you didn't know much about too.
Yeah, it was interesting to see like how the athletes trained, what was
Mm-hmm.
important, all of that. And I'm assuming Ali Hazelwood did some degree of research because
Totally.
she's such a big author at this point. You
Yeah.
have to. But yeah, I liked it because it was a sport that I don't think there's not a lot of diving romance books
No.
or swimming romance books.
Totally. We also have another woman in STEM.
Yep,
Um,
doctor
Doctor.
attempt.
Yes. And what I think I liked about like the athlete doctor type thing is that the personality was pretty on brand for who Scarlett was, like perfectionist, exhausted, she's not getting any sleep, she's not relaxing, and the exploration of having like sex come in and romance come in and help her unravel a little bit of the uptightness, I thought was an interesting exploration. But that is also, I don't read these books all the time. I imagine that that's a common theme in things like
Stress
that.
release. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, it's a really common thread in like the situationship one
Okay.
because Graham Effect
Yeah.
had the similar thing where she's like, I don't
Yeah.
need a relationship with you. I just need
Yeah.
sex.
Yeah.
Which is the first book in the Charlie Method one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember what the series
Campus
is called.
Diaries.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think it's a relatively common theme, especially for the like friends to lovers trope.
Yes.
But I liked that too.
Yeah. What did you not like? Spoiler free.
Um, what did I write down here? It was the lack of the big protagonist. I think I needed I needed more turmoil, I think is the word I wrote down. It
That's
says
what
turmoil,
I
but
that's what I put down too. I think what I struggle with in romance novels, and I know I just said that I wasn't going to complain about this too much. I'm I'm not against the happily ever after thing. I understand that that is the point. We all want to go into a book with this idea that like everything's going to work out. But I think what ends up happening with romance novels for me that I really struggle with is that literally everything works out. And for
mm,
me, that's where it borders on this unrealistic territory where it's like everybody has just profusely apologized for anything that they've done wrong and everybody has this magical character growth, but you don't have enough time in a 400-page romance novel to actually get there for everybody, for me to actually feel like it's believable.
yeah.
And there's one specific character that I think we both have a bit of a problem with where
Yeah.
that happened for me, where it was just like the whole book was this tension, this tension. We don't know what's going to happen with this character. We don't know which way they're going to go. And at the end, it's just like,
Oh, never mind, it's fine.
it's fine.
We apologize and we're good. And I was like, what do you
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Like, I think that romance novels should have this area where maybe not everybody is okay. Maybe not everything has been sorted out. Maybe there is still some question marks about how this relationship is going to work, or how some of the friendships are going to work, or XYZ. Maybe something in the school isn't totally figured out. I don't need everything to be wrapped up in a bow because in 350, 400 pages, you can't get there for me. There's too
Yeah.
many plot lines going on.
Yeah, and there's too many characters.
Yeah. So either do less characters and make it all work out in a way that makes sense, or if you're going to do that many characters, I'm okay with having some loose ends. Some people aren't, though. That's just me.
Because I feel like Love Hypothesis did that better with the one professor dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I think the turmoil in that one was even better in the fanfic version of it, where it wasn't even like a person, it was like an idea that was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But at least that one had like a thing I could focus on and be like, you suck.
Yeah, totally. I'll have more thoughts when we get into spoilers.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, okay. Next up, Scythe and Sparrow, released February 11th, has a 4.19 star rating with 59,000 reviews on Goodreads.
Okay.
Summary reads from the #1 New York Times bestselling author of the genre breaking international TikTok sensation Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark comes the final book in the Ruinous Love Trilogy, a friends with benefits dark romance comedy. Murder, mayhem, and spice. Dr. Fionn Kane is running from a broken heart, one he hopes to mend in small town in Nebraska, far away from his almost fiance and his derailed surgical career. It's a simpler head down, hard work, and absolutely no romantic relationships. He wants none of the circus he left behind in Boston. But then the real circus finds him. Motorcycle performer Rose Evans has spent a decade on the road with Silveria Circus, and it suits her just fine, especially when she has the urge to indulge in a little murder when she's not in the spotlight. But when a kill goes awry and she ends up with an injured leg, Rose finds herself stuck in Nebraska at the home of the adorably nerdy town doctor. The problem is, not every broken heart can be sewn back together, and the longer you stay in one place, the more likely your ghosts are to catch up.
I will be so honest, and I meant to do a recap of it. I read Leather and Lark while I was getting my hand tattoo done. And I can barely remember it
Totally.
because of the pain.
Yeah.
Um, so I might not have like the best summaries of that one in my brain.
Yeah.
But I was conscious and not in pain for all of this one.
Yeah, well, with Scythe and Sparrow, I've read all 3 of these books.
Haley, woo! First podcast episode throwback.
Yeah, our first ever podcast episode was actually on Butcher and Blackbird. And I think I remember rating it like a 3.5 maybe. And then I read Leather and Lark in the last 2 weeks, and then I also did Scythe and Sparrow. So I've done the last 2 like pretty back to back. What did you rate the series ender?
I give this one 4.
Nice.
Out of all the books we did for this, I got what I wanted out of it. I think the most. It was the most entertaining.
Really?
Um, it had the least spice, ironically.
It did.
But like this is a rom com, so I go into expecting to be outlandish and funny.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I feel like the other books in this one, I had really high hopes for Charlie Method, and it let me down on some key aspects. Okay. And then Deep End, again, I was just like, it was good.
Interesting.
But this one made me laugh out loud more than once.
That's fair. That's fair.
And that's what it was supposed to do.
Okay. I gave it a 3. This was actually, I think, this was my least favorite of the 3 that we did.
Okay.
But I really did like Leather and Lark.
Okay.
And I liked it more than I liked this one. What I did like about this, I love the humor. I think that they had a perfect, through the whole trilogy, to be honest, I think Brynne Weaver had a really perfect balance between light humor paired with something dark, which is murder. They're all serial killers, and they've got these little games, and they have these different employers and different ways of doing it. They only kill people who really deserve it, and they do it in funny and light ways.
Yeah.
And it's a really good balance between the two, because the seriousness of it also makes the romance a little bit more serious, the protectiveness of the men real, and those types of things.
Yeah, because they're like, we have these women who are their own worst enemies.
Yeah.
that we need to keep in track.
Yeah.
Not hobble or control, just guardrails.
Yeah. And these boys, there's 3 brothers, and they're all just super guarded, and they don't trust anybody because of their childhood, and their dad was awful, and they're broody, and they're Irish, I believe.
Yep.
And it was a fun series.
Yeah, it's a good time one.
Yeah.
It's also super easy to read them. They're quick.
Yeah. And what I think Brynne does a really good job at your experience. So in every single one of her books, she has trigger warnings. And I am not the type of person to do a lot of trigger warnings just because I really like to go in blind to books. I like to not know what to expect and I like to be surprised and shocked, right? And that includes like most triggers, just because I'm not the type of person who has a ton of triggers within books. But her trigger warnings are funny. She's like,
Yeah, they're
hey, I'm going to
hilarious.
ruin cotton candy for you, and it's going to be hilarious. And the
Yep.
way that she says it, the tone of it, I thought it was excellent. So that's where I think this book really shined. And if you're going into it just with this light rom com
Yeah, with a little
type
bit of
book,
murder on the side. It's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
I had the most fun with it. My biggest complaints with this one was the cotton candy was not sufficiently ruined for me. You set precedence with the ice cream and the pizza smoothie, and you just really didn't. That was pretty tame. Not gonna lie, I was
yeah,
like, eh,
yeah,
would indulge in that one.
yeah.
So like, it's not ruined.
Yeah.
Um, Granted, we did have a whole discussion about the ice cream and how we would also probably try that one.
Yeah,
So
I would try the ice cream.
if the person donating the salt was someone I knew, um, otherwise no. It needed more Barbara, which
Okay.
we'll get more context on in the spoiler section of this. But
Yeah.
like, you introduced Barbara, and then
Mhm.
like Barbara didn't get enough attention,
No, she didn't. I agree.
and yeah, same problem with fucking what was it? Quicksilver. Like, you introduced it and then you didn't pull it
Didn't
through.
follow through. Fair enough.
What else did I put here? I think that was the big things for me where I was like, I could have
Yeah.
used more of this to make it a little bit funnier, a little bit more entertaining.
Yeah.
You put it in the trigger list and I didn't get triggered.
Yeah. What I struggled with, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, is that Rose and Fiona's relationship and their book, this whole book, was very complementary to the first two books, right?
Yep.
That Butcher and Blackbird was Sloane and Rowan, and it was very much like just the two of them. The second book with Leather and Lark, you could like Rowan and Sloane's relationship came into it. You saw Fiona and Rose a little bit in both of the books, but Leather and Lark's book was Leather and Lark's book. They really got it.
Yeah.
Whereas Rose and Fiona, it was they had their own moments every once in a while, but the plot of both of the characters was weakened by the fact that Sloane and Rowan and Leather and Lark already had their moment and they already had a storyline. So the end of Scythe and Sparrow did cross over with some of the other books.
Yep.
And you just got a little bit of extra. You just got a little bit of extra what was going on, which I think is great. I don't actually have any problems with it, but it's not as strong of a book, in my opinion.
Yes, I think out of I have it rated as my lowest of the three.
Yeah.
I think I like, from what I remember of Leather and Lark, um, I think that one would probably be one of my top ones because I really liked Lachlan.
Me too.
Um,
I also really liked Lark.
yeah, Lark was pretty cool too.
Brynne Weaver has really strong female leads.
Yes, I don't hate any of them.
Yeah.
Like, I think they were all great characters.
Yeah.
And then Butcher and Blackbird, because looking back at Butcher and Blackbird, I was like,
I like their game. I like their competition and everything like that. They had a plot,
they
but
had
I
a
think
plot.
Leather and Lark
Stronger.
had a better like climax.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, for some reason, I'm just really craving fighting.
Yeah.
I need some fight. I need some
Totally.
struggle to survive.
Yeah.
And not the dudes they're all killing. That's not the struggle I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I do want that, but not the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had this one as my lowest one in the trilogy though.
Okay, fair enough. It would be mine too. Leather and Lark was my favorite, then Butcher and Blackbird, then Scythe and Sparrow. Okay, and lastly we have The Charlie Method. The Charlie Method was released on February 25th, so that was like 8 days ago or something. It was very, very recent. And right now it has 15,267 reviews and a 3.66 star on Goodreads.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it's tough to say though. You never know how it's gonna go moving forward.
It's early.
This is the third book in the Campus Diaries series by Elle Kennedy. The first one is The Graham Effect. The second one is
Dixon Rule.
That's Shane and Diana.
Yeah.
I believe. I did not read that one. I only read The Graham Effect for an episode on this podcast. I don't think I needed the second one. I don't think I lacked anything. The summary of The Charlie Method. The third in the steamy, hilarious Campus Diaries series by New York Times bestselling author Elle Kennedy, set in the same world as Off Campus and Briar U. College senior Charlotte Kingston is living two lives, and she's nailing both of them. By day, she's the perfect sorority girl, a STEM student in biomedical engineering, and the adopted daughter of an overachiever family. At night, she's Charlie, a risk taking daredevil looking for fun who finds herself chatting on a dating app with two anonymous hotties. Will Larson might seem like the breezy boy next door, but his congressman father is a constant thorn in his side. After a scandal hits another D1 hockey program, Will's dad is determined to distance his son from it, hiring a journalist to prove how squeaky clean Will and his team are. Which means the last thing Will wants is for anyone to find out he and his best friend Beckett Dune, a laid back Aussie shielding secret heartache, sometimes shares girls in the bedroom. When Charlie finally meets them in person and realizes she's been chatting with two gorgeous Briar U hockey players, things get steamy fast. But all their messy secrets are piling up, and real life soon threatens to shatter the fantasy. With Charlie, Will, and Beckett all coming to terms with what they want and what others want for them, difficult decisions will need to be made, especially when lust starts to look a lot like love. I don't find that summary super accurate, to be honest with you.
No, and there's way too much emphasis on the dad plot there, because that one fell real flat.
Yeah.
In the book, in my opinion.
Oh, interesting. Spoiler free, what did you think of this one? Is this your least favorite of the three? It kind of seems like it might be.
Yeah, this is my least favorite of three. And this is fucking petty. Just saying right now, I know I am the problem. But you spent 2 books building up Beckett and Will's sexual tension.
Yeah.
And you're like, they share girls. They do all of this. I'm not counting this as a spoiler. There are 2 books before this. If you haven't read them, whatever. There are side characters in both of those books, and they're just like all the way through. There's like the jokes from the boys, and the like, oh, you guys going upstairs, the fuck. Why is this an MFM book and not an MMF book? Because I know for a fact, Elle Kennedy, I've read him, you can do gay books.
Right.
Why is it not gay?
Yeah.
So it's getting 3 stars from me on that one, but I did add a 0.5 star for the book within the book.
Yeah.
So it's got a 3.5.
Okay.
But for like the storyline of this book, it gets a 3.
Yeah.
For the book within the book, it gets a 3.5.
Okay. I'm pushing 3.5. I had kind of a silly good time with this.
Yeah.
But I also had some like emotional attachment to it. Now, I've never read a Why Choose book before. This is my first one.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting because I personally have relatability to unconventional relationships.
Yes.
And what I was pretty interested in this book is that she did explore some of the themes of being in an unconventional relationship, trying to figure out what you want and balancing out what the world will see of you. And I think I'm probably in a bit of a unique situation with that because I don't know a ton of people who have also had really unconventional relationships.
Yeah.
My relationship was not exactly the same as Beckett, Will, and Charlie's, but it was unconventional enough that it's like I get this struggle that they had to go through.
Yeah, there were still 3 people in it.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it was really interesting to read about the 3 of them trying to figure out like this is what I want versus this is how the world sees me, and we're navigating a world that was not built for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a real emotional attachment to that because I've been through that.
Yeah.
And so I think that made me emotionally connected to it a little bit more than most romance books do for me. And I really like emotional attachment to my books. That's what I usually feel like I'm missing in romance novels.
Valid.
Especially when it comes to like unique and struggled experiences where I feel like there's a problem that might not be able to be solved perfectly, or there's going to be both love and pain. Like I love those types of themes. And the happily ever after in books, I struggle with that because there's always just it's a happy ending and we're fine. So I like the exploration of that theme.
Yes, I was really curious to see what your take would be on this one because it's the
Mhm.
first like I there's a whole shelf of White Shoes books behind me,
Yeah.
but it's the first one you've done
Mm-hmm.
that tiptoes its way into that, and I
Yeah.
think it's actually one of the more realistically well done. Like a lot of mine are fantasy that's like
Yeah.
it's built into their culture, it's whatever.
Yeah.
Versus this one was like this is the real world they live in, and how are they going to navigate that?
I was really impressed by it.
Okay,
Yeah,
good to know.
because like when I was reading it, I think a lot of people when they hear about an unconventional relationship like this, it's people really focus on the internal challenges that they think people are facing. Like how do you deal with the jealousy? I could never do what you're doing. I could never imagine being in a relationship with multiple people or two people or like all of these things, and they imagine what that internal struggle is. What they don't think immediately of is how is that person going to navigate the conflict that's going to be coming with family and friends who don't approve or see you differently. How are you going to like navigate going to a restaurant together and people staring at you, and people don't talk about the face of judgment and the external world that like literally is not made for you.
Yeah,
And I mean, this is so many groups of people struggle with this, like the LGBTQ community, which is often grouped in with like a throuple or unconventional relationships, the
mm-hmm.
trans community, and so many other communities who are living in a world that's not built for them. And I think that they did a really good job at balancing out like the internal struggles of the relationship and how they were going to navigate it and negotiating with each other, talking about like boundaries and rules and what everybody wanted and things like that, as well as how are we going to navigate people being assholes and a
Yep.
world who doesn't understand us.
And I found it interesting too with this one because there wasn't a lot of strife within the group.
No.
Like they knew what they were there for, they knew what they wanted, and they'd be like this, yes, no, and they'd
Yeah.
all be like yay, nay, and it was pretty equitable, which I feel like makes sense if you are someone who's going to go into that, you kind of know what you're getting into. Like there wouldn't like there's obviously every relationship has strife and
Yeah.
arguments, and like two people are going to argue.
Yeah.
Obviously, three are too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be perfect, but I liked the focus on the external factors on that one. Like his dad's a senator. How is that going to impact his
Mm-hmm.
campaign? um, Beckett really didn't have much stuff going on aside from his personal issues.
Yeah.
Like his external world was like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe you should deal with your own shit first, but like,
Yeah.
cool.
Totally. I have more to say on that when we get into spoilers, but I did think that that was fairly well done. I liked that Charlie again was in STEM. It was a very similar theme to Deep End, where it's like this person who really feels like she has to have everything together and she has to be perfect, and her family is an overachiever and she's worried about how her family is going to see her if she unravels and all of those things. And again, exploring the use of sex, which she did right from the beginning of the book,
Yes.
to allow herself to relax and to like let go of all of those things. And um, I think the thing that I always look for in romance books is how are you using the relationship to grow and develop as yourself, if you are going to make that relationship believable to me,
Yep.
right? Do I think that you're a better person in the relationship? Do I think you're still a good person outside of the relationship and you're using your relationship to make you a better person? I really like that aspect of it. That's what makes a believable relationship to me, and I thought they did a good job with that.
Yeah. I also really like that Charlie is an Asian woman.
Yep.
That was fun. Um,
Adopted too.
adopting Korean woman, which was a really cool kind of subplot to the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
About her like her identity and how she connects to that, and there is always that piece of like you are of two worlds. In her case, she's like raised by white people and then doesn't look like them, has a Korean background, versus like someone
Yeah.
like me who is half
Yeah.
and like also still doesn't fit into either of those very well.
Right.
So I thought that part was really cool and relatable.
Yeah.
And I also thought that part was really well done.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
They did a lot with it. She did a lot with this book.
She did a lot. It's a huge book too. It's like a
Yeah.
650 some odd page book. Like it
Yeah.
was it was a lot of book.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, I had fun with it. I, like, again, same with Deep End, which I think is why I've rated these two higher than Scythe and Sparrow, is because I just, like, I couldn't put it down. I was excited to hear what was next. I was emotionally attached to these characters to an extent. I had fun with both of them. I thought they were fairly well written.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I didn't dislike this book.
Yeah.
I just wasn't
You were
delivered what
upset
I
with
was
that. And
promised.
it does help that, like, I didn't read one of these,
Yeah.
so I don't know how much. Like, I do remember Beckett and Will from the first one a little bit, but I obviously didn't read the second one, and so I was a little bit less attached to, like, them actually being together. So I understand why. Like, I've read a couple of reviews. A lot of people are upset about it. It's not just you.
Oh, thank God.
Um,
Because my friend, who's also really invested in these books, was like, "You're gonna be so pissed," and I was like,
yeah,
"No."
yeah. It seemed like that was like kind of a big thing for people. I obviously was not as
Yeah.
heartbroken about that because I don't think I had as much of an attachment to like that happening. Um, but I did have an issue with the writing a little bit.
Okay.
Um, I find that every character almost speaks with this like hyper therapeutic self awareness. I
Mm.
felt this a little bit with Deep End, but I thought it was a little bit better placed in Deep End. It's like it was like kind of like they were all like rigorously trained in emotional self-awareness.
Okay.
And so anytime like someone did something sort of wrong or even in real time if there was a conflict, it was very very quick for them to be like, and I understand that this is just my emotions getting in the way and I'm going to move on and I'm going to do this in a healthier way. And there wasn't a ton of like conflict with it because every character was just like, no, we love you no matter what. And like I like there was a few apologies in there that I was just like, that just came out of nowhere, as if you just like every character just somehow had years of therapy under their belt and was able to rectify their mistakes immediately. These are 21-year-old characters
They're young.
and they're all just able to like therapize themselves in every situation while their hormones are going crazy and they're navigating a situation they've never before. I found that a little bit annoying.
Yeah, I think this one also came back to like I needed a little bit more strife.
Yeah.
So there need to be more challenges.
Yeah, yeah.
External challenges. I don't care what they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we go into deep or to spoilers?
Let's go.
Okay. Um, Going back into the deep end, I think both of our major issue with this book was Pen.
Pen. Pen should have been a sociopathic cog in the machine that just destroyed everything in her wake. She should have tried to dope what's her face, the main character whose name I apparently forgot
Lucas?
already. No, the girl.
Oh, Scarlet.
Scarlet, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she should have done something. She should
Yeah.
have tried to like destroy their relationship in a more targeted, like when that other girl was like she's a sociopath, I wanted that to pay off.
I know. Well, and this is actually two of my points that I've just made. The first is this happily ever after. Pen could have been not resolved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Pen having all of these feelings, or like this book really leading up, like Pen's gonna have these feelings. I can't tell Pen because she's gonna hate me, even though she's never really given me
Yeah.
a like reason to think that that was gonna happen. And then like all of these things are gonna happen, and she's gonna like,
Well,
be
even at the
super.
beginning of the book, she's like when they break up, she's like we'll come back together eventually. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
"Yes.
right,
Fight."
exactly. And then like she finds another man, and so you're just like, okay, we'll just tell her. I don't think she's going to blow up, but then they built it up for so long that she just became more and more scared to tell her. I was like, okay, now I'm scared to tell her. What's going to happen when you do? And then she does have a meltdown.
Yeah.
And then once again, this hyper therapeutic self awareness that I'm talking about, like butter, it's like, I'm so sorry for everything I did. I reacted. This is the reason I reacted. Like,
Oops.
I reacted because of my childhood or whatever. It's like they've gone to therapy for years, even though it's only been a couple weeks, or like all those things. I get that people process things in different ways, but I don't need everything to be this perfect happy ending.
Yeah. Ditcher.
Right.
It's fine. She can be crazy. It's okay.
Yeah. And she acted crazy.
For like 10 seconds.
Yeah. And it didn't necessarily even need to be Pen. I just felt like she was kind of used as a plot device a little bit to prevent Scarlet from just falling in love with Lucas immediately because there was no other reason that she didn't.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they did really well together. They
Yeah.
had more in common than just the sex.
Yeah.
Um, You haven't done BDSM in this way before, I don't think, in any of the books we've read.
I don't think I really have. Like, I read 50 Shades of Grey way back when, but those books, I feel like that doesn't really count.
Those are a horrific representation
Yeah,
of that.
100%.
I fucking loved the questionnaire. I was
Yeah.
like, yes, this is how it is done. You researched, you did this properly, like you did them separately. You didn't get to see what the other
hmm
person put down. You didn't get to be pressured. Like, oh, beautiful.
So what they did is Lucas basically, or was it Scarlet? I think it was
It was
Lucas.
Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas gave both of them a questionnaire of the things that they would be into, because what they did a really good job at setting the precedence of at the beginning of the book is, hey, BDSM is pretty general. Like,
Yeah,
there's a
it's
large spectrum of things, and a
massive.
lot of people who are into BDSM are not compatible in the same things, because like literally some of the things that you might partake in with BDSM might be traumatizing to some people, and then another piece of BDSM is something that people really like.
Hmm.
And so what they did a good job at setting the precedence, even if you don't know anything about BDSM, it was very much like, hey, we're both kinky. And Penn at the very beginning was like, oh my god, you guys are both into BDSM, you guys would be perfect together. And they really brought it back and said, hey, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, that's not how this
Lucas
works.
brings up a questionnaire. He's like, let's both fill this out about what we're interested in, what we like. You're not going to see my answers, I'm not going to see yours, and we're going to come together and we're actually going to see if we're compatible. And of course, because this is a romance book, of course they were
Yeah,
compatible. Whatever. But it was a cool way for them to like healthily discuss their sex life together. I like that.
yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
They like had they had safe word in the sense that it was stop, which depending on what you filled out in that questionnaire is perfectly fine safe word.
Yeah.
Unless you had non-con or dub-con in there, in which case that's not a good safe word. That is a more word. Um, the only thing I think I would have added more in here, and this is also like a BDSM thing that's like my not unique, but
mm-hmm.
not everyone does, is the traffic light system a little bit more.
Yeah.
Where you're like, green is good, yellow is I need a second, but
Yeah.
like I'm okay, and then
Yeah.
red is stop.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there were a couple moments in this one where I was like, you maybe should have checked in with her a little bit more than that.
You know who did a really good job of that? Sorry, I'm tangenting. But in Leather and Lark, they did that.
Yes.
And okay, so this is maybe too much information, but the first time before they even had sex or whatnot, Lark gave Leather a present before she went on stage to like perform. It was like a band or whatever. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
can remember this. And she like told him to open it at a specific time. And so she like gave him, like, while she was on stage, she gave him uh the like signal to open it, and he did, and it was a remote.
Oh
And
yeah.
and um I think this is the first time that they started using that system. I don't remember exactly how it was, but she basically like told him to turn it on, and she had a toy like in her.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was hot.
Yeah. Those are fun.
Yeah.
They're expensive.
Yeah. But yes, I did clock the little traffic light system. I don't know much about it, but
Yeah, I just think it's a good way, like if you're trying something new, to be able to check in with them
mm-hmm.
because like they did, I think it was anal for the first time at the end of this book,
Yeah.
somewhere around there, and I was like, I understand that you're like he knows me so well in my body, but like no one knows your body better than you do.
Yeah.
B- Blanket statement,
Mm-hmm.
and like even your doctor.
Yeah.
So like maybe maybe check in.
Yeah. Well, and that's the line I think you're gonna toe with books, because that one, I clocked that. I was like, there's this assumption that the man will know your body best, and like he'll
Yeah, your
never do anything wrong,
boundaries
blah blah
and
blah.
whatever.
I understand why they're in romance books. Because that's the dream.
Yeah,
That, like, right? Like, that's the
that's
dream where
would be wonderful.
you don't have to communicate boundaries. You don't have to tell them when to stop or anything like that, because they know you so well. That is the fantasy that romance, oh my god. That is the
Yeah.
fantasy that romance books give to you, is this idea that there's somebody who's made for you and that's perfect for you, and that they understand every little movement of your body and things like that. So I think I clocked that, and it rolled off of me easy, because I was like, I get it, but
Yeah.
it's just that's not a realistic thing.
Yeah, and in most books that have BDSM in it, I wouldn't even care because they
Yeah,
don't set the precedent of trying to do it properly.
right.
Like, there's a whole bunch of books up on this shelf here that
Yeah.
disregard what a safe word is,
Mhm.
negotiate nothing.
Yeah.
And that's fine because that's what they're for. But
Yeah.
this one I think was started off with the whole like, and this is how you do kink.
Yeah, it was almost like, I'm not going to say textbook, but it was educational in a
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Like I would say this is if you were going to approach someone with this kind of relationship, questionnaire is a great way to go.
Totally.
Um I'm trying to think what else.
Yeah, I wish Penn had a little bit more to her. I did like Lucas though. I
Yeah, I
thought
like
Lucas was a
Lucas.
cool character. And I just had a silly good time with this one.
Yeah, I enjoyed this book. It was fun. Oh yeah, there's a small. Wow, I was really nitpicky with these books. Lucas is like described as having all these tattoos, and I was wondering if when he would have gotten all of these tattoos because
You
you'll
can't
notice
swim.
a lot of Olympic swimmers and divers do not have a lot of tattoos because you can't swim for 2 weeks
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, yeah.
For someone like me, probably longer because I
Well, and also like I don't know the logistics, but like I feel like it can't just be like 2 weeks no swimming and then you're in the pool every single day for 3 hours.
yeah.
Like
Oh,
I didn't
can
even
you
clock that, but that's
imagine
so interesting.
how itchy you would be with
Mhm.
chlorine on like the peeling stage of a tattoo? I
Yeah.
would crawl out of my own skin.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought Swimming Boy having like full sleeves was unrealistic.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're totally right.
Like it bothered me enough that I wrote it
Yeah.
down in my notes.
Yeah, he did have that period of time when his mom died, though, that he took a bunch of time off. Maybe that's when it all happened.
Maybe.
Yeah. They had good backstory in this one.
Yeah, because they did say he did get one of the tattoos during that time
Because I
period.
think it was his mom, yeah.
Yeah, it was like her home village,
Yeah.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Which made sense. I was like, totally fair. You had at
Right.
least a couple months off for that to heal.
Yeah.
Sure. But I was like, I don't. When were you getting blasted and then just being like, swimming time?
Yeah, that's funny.
It's like a nightmare.
Yeah. No, that one was fun. Um, Scythe and Sparrow.
He introduced the raccoon and then she was in like one other scene, kind of.
Yeah, it was always kind of, but like we've talked about this before with the raccoon, like with the little pets.
Yeah.
They're hard to keep track of.
They're so, and
As an author, they're hard to keep track
yeah,
of.
and I am like I get it. Like you're like cute little pet, adorable, great for all the fic art
Mm-hmm.
people to like figure out. But like fuck you guys, no one can keep track of them properly. It's so
No.
difficult.
Yeah, because I remember we were talking about this with Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Because this happened. And I also always talk about it with D&D because if you are a character
Where's
who
your
has...
pet?
I've always played... I play a paladin, that nobody who's listening to this is going to know what I'm talking about, but I play a paladin in one of my campaigns and I have like a horse, but the horse just has a set number of hit points and when it dies, it just disappears and I don't have to think about it because I can just resummon it next long rest, basically. But there are people who play characters who like have a companion
Yeah.
and they either just become huge burdens
Yeah.
or they forget that they're there.
Yeah. Even like I was thinking about this recently with Harry Potter. I was like, what the fuck happened to Buckbeak after
Oh yeah, no, you can't keep track because there's so many animals in
it's
that
just
book.
gone.
Like she did it in a good way with Hagrid because like Hagrid just always had all of these little beasts and stuff, but like
Where's
Hagrid,
Fluffy?
right?
Where the fuck is that Seabrist now?
I know.
It's just
Like
is
yeah,
it roaming the forest?
even Hedwig probably got lost a couple of times in those
Yeah.
books where it's just like, oh yeah, Hedwig is not needed for this book. We're just gonna lock her up in the tower for the next year because I can't figure out what to do with her.
Yeah. But authors as a whole, we all just really suck with keeping track of pets.
Totally.
They're a
Totally.
pain in the ass. They're
Yeah.
cute. They're wonderful to have. I wanted more Trash Panda.
If you if you have any recommendations where they've done a really good job with little furry companions that are really fun to have around, please let us know. We can do a whole episode on it or something.
Yeah,
We can rank it.
I need to find some authors who are just really good at integrating the pet into the whole plot line.
Yeah. But yeah, with Rose and Fionn, I was actually really surprised because Fionn is my type. I'm always into the nerds.
Yeah.
Right? That's my thing. That's my type. Um And so Fionn, I remember him showing up in Butcher and Blackbird, and I was like interested in him immediately. Like he's nerdy, he's dorky. That's the one that I'm interested in. And I didn't mind Fiona and Rose's relationship. I don't know if I was just a little bit desensitized to romance by this point because it was the last one I read out of the three.
That's fair.
But their relationship was fine, and it wasn't anything special in my opinion. Fiona had kind of the same broody asshole-ish vibes as both of his brothers, and I wish that his internal dialogue was more nerdy. Even that being a doctor or something like that, like him thinking about certain, doctor things or whatever, I don't care. But like you go through med school, you become a surgeon, you are going to be obsessively nerdy about something, and I want that from you.
Yeah.
I don't want you just like hiding from your past, like literally both of your brothers have done in every single other book.
Yes.
So that's where I really struggled with it. I still found it fun. I still found it hilarious. But like the climax was the exact same climax as Leather and Lark because it was the same storyline.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and I think so. I actually found someone on Instagram who had a companion read for it, like you would do with Tower of Dawn, what the fuck it's called.
Yeah, Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, where you could like you read like the first 5 or 6 chapters of Butcher and Blackbird, then you switch to Leather and Lark, then you switch to back to Butcher and Blackbird, and then you switch over to like Scythe and Sparrow, and then you swap between all the books so that you get like the full timeline in timeline.
I think that would have been better.
Which I think making it like one giant book would be so entertaining.
Yeah.
Where you just had POV switches all the way through.
Yeah.
I liked that. When I saw that, I was like, maybe I'll try that one day because I think it would be fun.
I think that would be better because having the same ending to an extent, like the same big scene, climax, whatever, be in those last two books, I was like, I don't really need to listen to this part. I already heard it, just in a different, like, now I'm just, instead of the dog getting healed off screen, it's getting healed on screen. And I know what's happening in the other place. And then, like, they all come together, and I'm like, I know she survives. I know she's going to be okay. And even though in romance books, like, yes, the main characters aren't going to die because it's a romance book and it's happily ever after. I get that. They're having that tension of, like, what's going to happen? Is she going to be okay? Like, having that feeling is fun. Yeah. And when I was reading it, I was like, I know what happens. I know how this ends because this happened last book.
Yeah, we've already been here, done this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt that one was kind of a cop-out for this.
But as a trilogy,
so good.
The trilogy was good.
Yeah, I highly recommend them if you want to try to get into the... calling them dark romances again, I think is not the right word for it.
Yeah. Dark rom-com, maybe?
Yeah, like murdery rom-com.
Yeah.
Because they're not dark.
No.
They deal with dark themes.
Yeah.
But not in a dark way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know how better to describe that. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
As someone who's read, like, the epitome of dark romance.
Yeah.
And then come into this, I'm like,
Right.
Also, the cotton candy on the butt plug. Sure, whatever.
What I thought was happening, because was the butt plug already in somebody's butt before they ate the cotton candy?
Yes.
Okay, it was. That's what
That's
I thought.
why she was like, I need this to make it a little bit more appetizing. To, like,
Got
put it.
it.
Like, okay. She's like, I'm not going to put it in my mouth, but, like, if you put the cotton candy on, okay.
It'll be better. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm sorry, you ground some dude's teeth into his pizza smoothie in the last book and then fed it to him.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot more aggressive.
Or the cum ice cream.
Yeah, that was so good. Like, that was my favorite one.
The cum ice cream is still
well, see, favorite. The thing is like...
You can debate the cum ice cream.
You can, and it's like, that's the closest one to an actual ingredient, in my opinion. Like, the consistency is kind of there. I don't see the problem.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, the cum ice cream, I think, was like... It was shocking to read it. I was like, oh.
I know.
Oh, no.
But then you're like...
But then... Well, if it had been butcher's cum, then, like, sure.
Like, I've never eaten teeth before, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I also don't want to.
Right, but, like, the first, like...
I've eaten the other one a lot.
Exactly.
It's been fine. Have yet to die. But yeah, so I was like the cotton candy and the butt plug. I'm like, there's a little bit of ick to that, but for me, like that's people are like into that. They do that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
you're gonna move it from one spot to the next. That's what it
yeah.
is.
For me, the
But like no one's grinding up their own teeth and eating them.
I think it's really difficult to make butt stuff sound appetizing in a book.
Yeah.
I find it difficult. I'm always like, ooh, like unless I'm in the mood for sex and like I'm feeling a little bit like spicy,
Mm-hmm.
I see that and I'm like, I'm it's just a Tuesday afternoon. This feels like a lot, you know what I mean?
Not today.
It's just yeah, as soon as it gets there on just like, 2 o'clock
Yeah.
in a weekday afternoon, I'm like, I don't know about that. I'm on my lunch break right now.
I'm actively working is usually what's happening. I'm literally writing an email to this director
Feels
asking them
like
to
a
do
lot.
something while this plays.
And then by the end of this whole marathon of books that we were reading, I was like a little bit desensitized to it. And I was like, I don't know that that's the vibe that I want. I would kind of rather feel like it's a lot again because it was a lot of smut.
It was a lot of smut. And ironically this one was the least smut.
Yeah, it was.
But I had one thing down that I really liked. Oh, I love the idea of the serial killer who's just like way too clumsy to be a serial killer.
Totally.
It was hilarious. It
Yeah.
added a lot of like she just like was incompetent as a serial killer, but
Mm-hmm.
very dedicated to becoming one. It was her passion.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I did like Rose as a character. She was fun.
It was very entertaining.
Yeah.
Also stand crocheting men. That's
Yeah.
adorable.
Yeah. That was really cute.
Little grannies.
She has such a good sense of humor, and she knows when the right time to put something lighthearted is in there. And yeah, it was a great little trilogy.
Yeah, I had a fun time with
Yeah,
that.
the last book on its own isn't
The
anything.
strongest.
Yeah, not at all. But I actually, if you're gonna do the trilogy, I would recommend going and looking up a tandem read because I think that that would be the best way to inhale this.
Yeah, it would be fun. Where are they? They're up there. Um also, what publisher is this? One
Is this
second.
because they did them all differently?
Slow burn, or whoever the fuck you are. Yeah, you suck. All these books are different heights. That is a crime. Like
Yeah.
an actual crime against. They're a couple millimeters off, all of them.
Yeah.
No two are the same height.
Oh my god. Yeah. Okay, Charlie method?
Yeah, I'm
Alrighty.
done. I have a lot less notes for this.
Okay, fair enough. I think I just have like supporting things of the stuff that I've already said. Um, the one thing with my therapy comment where all of these characters just had this like incredible self-awareness, like even Will, for example, I did think that him and his dad's relationship was really interesting because it was one where we see it all the time where like politicians and things like that, they have like this family turmoil, or people who have big dynasties and businesses have
Yep.
kids who go to competing brands, and it's this whole thing. But even Will was just very like, I know what my stuff is. I know what my dad's stuff is. I know what I'm responsible. I know what I'm not responsible for. Like, as a 21-year-old hockey boy, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You do not have the self awareness to say, like, I do not feel guilty about what my dad needs from me, and I can make my own decisions and I can go my own way. Like, let's be so fucking for real.
Yeah, or like even bringing his dad into the whole decision making process. I was like,
Right? Like,
you're a hothead.
you were raised by this man, and you're telling me you have the emotional maturity to have a conversation with him and make this decision that you're not supposed to be like making decisions on his. Like, you're either gonna be feel super guilty for everything and not go and take this job, or you're just gonna be like, fuck you, dad, I don't care what you think, and you're gonna scream at him. Like, I just don't think that, whatever. But like her Charlie's parents had this the whole time. Like, she was so nervous to tell them about her relationship with Will and Beckett. Ava, her sister, was scared to tell her parents that she was a lesbian. Oliver, her brother, was getting a divorce, and they all sit around the table and they tell him during his their dad's birthday. And I just think like it's just this immediate like, oh my gosh, we love you no matter what. All of these things that are completely news to us, and the fact that you were lying to us about it is totally fine. Like, yes,
Yeah.
that's the way that they should react. I get that. But it's not realistic. Like, have some conflict here. Have some
I
discussions.
also, and like projecting myself onto this, all of them brought forward really big life events, like coming out, kind of also coming out with your
Yeah.
boyfriends, plural,
Mm-hmm.
and having that divorce. Like, she brushed over way too quickly the fact that their children didn't come to them for support
Yeah.
during any of that. Like, if I was about to go through a divorce, you bet your ass I'm calling my mom,
Right.
texting
Yeah.
my dad. Like, my dad and I don't talk on the
Yeah.
phone unless someone's dead.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, I would have a conversation with my parents almost immediately. Like, I would lean on them for support, and I would not sit here on a pedestal and be like, I have the best relationship with my parents ever. They're the
No.
most
Yeah.
supportive, wonderful human
Yeah. Yeah.
beings. Like, but I would still reach out to my parents and be like,
Right.
help.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, yeah, because they acknowledged that a little bit, kind of, and they were just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry that you didn't feel comfortable coming to us. It's because we were like great overachievers." But that in and of itself is like this hyper awareness that if you had that much hyper awareness, we wouldn't be in this situation in
Yeah,
the
your
first
kids would
place.
have come to you the second they were having difficulties with these situations.
Right. And that's the thing that made it so unbelievable. It's like, why were you so nervous to tell them if that is how they like
We're gonna
reacted to
react.
everything?
Yeah.
And I also struggled with it with Harrison, her brother, that she had
The bio brother.
yeah, yeah, because again, what a interesting relationship where like her brother is dealing with some crazy resentment because he grew up in a terrible household and got abused, and his younger sister who got adopted to this wonderful family, she was very well off, she had everything that she ever wanted. There's real resentment there. And
Yeah.
so he has like a meltdown at the end and throws her bunny off of a cliff into the water and like completely storms off. And then 2 seconds later, I'm so sorry for how I acted. It's because of all of these things that I'm dealing
Yeah.
with as a childhood and all of this stuff that I went through. And it's like, if you are that, like, I get the emotional side of things and that you have outbursts, but that doesn't go away in a week. All of
No.
that childhood trauma that you existed and like that existed in your life and your emotional outburst, it's not just like a, oh, I understand if you never want to talk to me again, but these are all the reasons that I did that. It's like, if you like, that's not an excuse. If you have that self-awareness, you should, it doesn't make sense how we got here in the first place. And every character in this book had it, and I really struggled with that.
Yeah, that was difficult.
Charlie was even like this.
Yes, they were all just really capable of being like, and now I process my emotions.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I wish I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
really anxious right now, and I
Yeah,
got no
yeah.
way of fixing that.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this book was the fanfic.
The fanfic.
The fanfic was the greatest thing. Genius, absolute genius.
It was what Alexander the Great and
Queen Elizabeth,
who did not.
They were not
live in the same era.
contemporaries.
But okay, so here's what it is. I'm gonna explain it.
Yeah.
So, in one of their classes that Will and Charlie had together when they were like had first met and
Didn't know who the other one was.
right, like
the app they met on was anonymous.
yeah, and they weren't showing their faces and they didn't know that they were talking to each other. Whatever. There's this other girl named Lourdes.
I think it's Lourdes.
Lourdes.
Because he keeps calling her Lord Ass.
Yeah, and her boyfriend George, and so originally I think Lourdes and Charlie were lab partners.
No, Lourdes and Will were lab partners, and then George and Charlie
were lab partners. And one day they go in, and the teacher is like, we're switching up lab partners, and they don't really know why, but they did, and that's how Charlie and Will ended up together, and Lourdes and George ended up together. And later we find out that Lourdes and George wrote this joint letter to the prof, basically like just with
it was the weirdest codependency therapy letter I've ever read in my life.
Yeah, it was like, we make each other better and we will learn together way better, and we are perfect for each other, and this is why we need to be lab partners. And they attached this like therapy letter that I bet they got from the equivalent of BetterHelp in this this world. And so they ended up being lab partners because the teacher was probably like, I'm not
dealing with this.
Whatever.
The sign off was my favorite too, where it was like, in love and learning.
Yeah.
It was so good.
And so we find out that Will was editing and reviewing Lourdes's fan fiction of Alexander the Great and Queen Elizabeth, who once again were not even close to living in the same time period. But it was so funny because it's exactly what it's just so on brand for fan fiction.
It's so on brand for a stereotype of fan fiction.
Yeah.
Where it was just like the wording, the
It used the word
conversation.
effulgent like 6 times in the same, like the 3
I still
paragraphs.
don't know what that word means.
I think it's like a actually, let me just look it up.
We should share what it means because I don't think I didn't Google it or highlight it on my Kindle. But yeah, because it's what I imagine people think I'm reading when I say I read fanfic all the time,
Yeah.
which is not typically what I am, but it's so funny.
Yeah, it means shining brightly or radiant. So
Okay.
a person or their expression emanating joy or goodness.
Okay.
Yeah, and she just used it all the time. She used the word like deflowering.
Yeah. It was very like Victorian verbiage for the sex acts they were doing, and very passionate, and it was just so funny. And then was it Beckett that found it on the laptop and then shared it with like the whole team?
Because Will told Charlie about it, and then it was on Will's laptop, and then Beckett started reading it, and then one time they were driving home from game, and I think it was like Shane or something who had mentioned that like his girlfriend was really mad at him.
Oh yeah, Diana was really mad at him.
And they were like, "Why?" And he was like, "Well, I missed a commitment. That I was an hour late for a commitment." And then somebody else I think was like, he was reading a fan fiction, and then Beckett or Will, one of them, because they didn't know. Will didn't know that Beckett had read it
or shared it
at this point, and so Will was like, "What?" And then Beckett, everyone was like, "What chapter, dude?" And then it was like chapter 12, and they were like, "The deflowering." Yep. And then
because he was late
later,
because he was jerking off to the chapter, and then Diana like walked in on him jerking into this fanfic. I was like, this is so on brand for Shane too. Oh my god.
Oh, it was so funny. It was so
really good.
Yeah.
And then you didn't get to read chapter 12 until after they talked about it too. So you're like,
the deflower.
I haven't read this chapter yet either.
Oh my god.
So it got a 0.5 star extra for that because it was really funny, and I thought also like really creative.
You said you would read the whole fanfic.
Oh yeah, I'd absolutely read that whole fanfic. I think it would be so... Yeah. Elle Kennedy, this is my humble request for the full Queen Elizabeth and Alexander the Great fanfic. You already have like 4 chapters written. You only need like another 3.
Yeah.
And you can publish that to AO3 or something for me.
Yeah. Back to the seriousness of the like actual relationship that Charlie, Will, and Beckett had. So you know the terminology. Basically, Beckett and Will didn't sleep together. It was just Charlie with Beckett, Beckett with Charlie with Will, but they would all fool around.
They'd all be in the same vicinity while they had sex.
Yeah. But I thought it was an approachable why choose for the outside world. What I'm really trying to get across is that I think that they did a good job of explaining the emotions when it comes to an unconventional relationship, and within it too, because all 3 of them were always very like, there was a point in time where Will had, or Beckett, I can't remember which one, where like I kept waiting to feel the jealousy and it didn't come, and that kind of thing, where it's like it's very approachable for people who don't understand what it's like to be in a relationship like that. It was like, no, I acknowledge that I'm supposed to be feeling that. I don't feel that. And that's a weird feeling. That is a weird thing to navigate, of like, I know that I should be jealous, and I don't know, does that mean that I don't care about this person? Does that mean that I don't, right? Like, there's complexities in that relationship of what you're told is supposed to happen, right? Because what you're told is supposed to happen is I'm supposed to feel jealous for this other person being close to the person that I love or that I care about. And so when you don't feel jealous, you have this questioning like, do I actually care about this person? Do I feel love in this relationship? Is this right? Is this wrong? Like, those types of things. So I thought that she did a good job of like really highlighting, hey, I know what they're supposed to feel. I'm telling you that they're not feeling that, and that is why this relationship is working.
Yeah, it's why they're doing it.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought she did a good job with that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like,
But I get that
if it
people
hadn't
were
been
really upset
built
about.
up,
Yeah,
I would have been fine with it.
right. And I would have been fine with them sleeping together too, or like, they also kind of what I will say that I can understand why you're upset. They did even tease it a little bit,
Talked
like
about
in
it.
that book. Like they were like, like we've never done it, but maybe if like I wouldn't push it away if it were to happen and I was feeling it, and then it never really happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can see where people are upset about that.
And just I and I think it would be an interesting thing because like obviously some of the books I read are pretty niche and like they're not getting 100,000 reviews
Yeah.
usually. Like they're not blowing up quite that big. There's
Mm-hmm.
some that have. I think J. Bree has her Bonds That Tie series is freaking massive.
Yeah.
But it's really rare for those kinds of books to hit the mainstream and like
Mm-hmm.
actually get the
Yes.
indie authors like more interest in what they are writing. So I
Yeah.
was like, it would have been so cool to have some of that start to show up in a book by
Right.
Elle Kennedy, the queen of college hockey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know if it was like she never intended it for it to go there. I don't know if mainstream publishing was like absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
You're already pushing it with a thruple,
Right.
or if she would just because she's written MM books,
Yeah. It's so
MM hockey books.
it's so interesting that you feel that way because I almost feel like it was pushing it more to not have them together. Like I don't know, because when I when I think that people think of a thruple, they think, okay, well everybody's together. That's my assumption when I hear that. And like
Yeah,
it would have been I think that the relationship was so interesting to explore when it wasn't just like everybody loves each other. Like Will and Beckett's relationship was different than Charlie and Beckett's relationship, and Charlie and Beckett's relationship was different than Will's. It wasn't just this three-way romantic love
yeah,
in that way, and I think that that was more complex and difficult to explore than it would have been if like, oh yeah, Beckett and Will already love each other.
yeah, yeah. Or like that she could have explored them like figuring it all out together as a group.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that
Yeah.
would have been interesting. Where they're like, maybe
Right.
I have feelings for Will, and like
Yeah.
maybe we need to talk about that. And
Yeah.
like the insecurities of Charlie of like, do I fit into this still? Because I joined
Right.
them and they were here
Yep.
already. Because again, most of these Why Choose books I read too, like the guys don't screw. This is not a prerequisite in my brain for Why Choose
Well,
in
maybe
any way,
that's what
shape,
she
or
was trying to
form.
do then. Like, could it be
She just
possible
built
that
it up too much leading into this book.
that's what I'm hearing? Like, because I'm wondering if she was trying to play off of what mainstream Why Choose is. Is that even a thing? Is that a mainstream Why Choose? Is
I
that
don't know. That statement might be a contradiction.
I was just gonna say. But like the more popular Why Choose books, maybe she was trying to get in with
Yeah.
that.
Like the most popular one I just mentioned, the Bonds That Tie, like they're all brothers.
Yeah.
They're not screwing.
Yeah. Or is it potentially this, okay, Charlie is the main character and we're doing this from a woman's perspective of like we're trying to make the woman the relatable character. And if we put Beckett and Will together, is that going to have an impact on the female audience where they feel like, oh, like now Charlie has to navigate her not belonging and her not doing these things, which again, I think would have been interesting, but were they worried about the relatability of the character in that regard?
Me and again, I don't. Elle Kennedy doesn't have any throuple or
Yeah.
Why Choose books. This is the first one she's done, from my understanding of the ones I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But she has done MM in the past.
Yeah.
Is by far her least popular book. It is really good though. It's called Him, and there's another one called Us. They're duology.
Okay.
Highly recommend. They're adorable, and they're like NHL hockey players. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Um, if you want MM hockey Rex, boy, do I have you.
Yeah, she's got
so many.
she's got a few of those.
There's a bunch of them on the shelf.
Yeah. I
But
can't
yeah,
wait for the sapphic hockey romance books because there's actually a ton of professional hockey players who are married to each other on the same team.
yeah. Also,
Like
the
you'd be,
basketball
yeah.
scene for that is the tea is piping hot
Yeah.
in the women's basketball league.
Yeah.
Because it'll be like my ex-girlfriend is on my team, but my
Women's
wife
soccer.
is on the other team, and
Yeah, women's soccer is the same.
Oh yeah.
We've talked about this before, but it is so interesting how much kinder the LGBTQ community is to women's sports than men's. And I don't mean that, like, I'm not saying that they've been kind to women's sports by any means. Like, y'all, there's a long way to go. But there's just been so many more, like, open relationships
Yeah.
and out relationships in the women's sports community.
Yeah, yeah, it's honestly I find it heartbreaking as someone who would just really love to see the cute hockey boys together
Yeah.
because it brings me so much fluffy good joy feelings when I'm
Because
like, look at your love.
was it during the Elle Kennedy conversation or the God of War? I can't remember which conversation we did this towards, but when we looked up stats for how many out hockey and NHL or an NFL players, it's like
None.
it's next to nothing. There's been
Yeah.
a handful, and most of them didn't come out until after they were retired from playing, or like weren't actually in the mainstream media. It's like it's crazy.
That was the Pride episode because I did
Pride
the
episode,
like
yeah.
billion sports reviews.
Yes, I remember this. Okay. Yeah, we
It was
did.
a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh goodness.
Anyway, that's February in a nutshell, an hour and 20-minute nutshell. But you know we didn't give any of these less than 3 stars.
No, I thought I actually had a silly good time with all of them, and that is very impressive for me with a romance book.
Yeah.
I think I should actually look at what my average rating for romance books are. I don't think it would be over 2.5.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Because I'm not a romance girly, but they hit some chords with these ones. So good job, team.
Yeah, super popular. If you read any of them, let us know what your ratings were. If you had similar likes and dislikes as us, or if we're just getting really nitpicky these days.
Yeah, we might be. I'm definitely very nitpicky. I am critical. But I will say that my growth is in really allowing the types of books that I know are not for me just not be for me and not being hypercritical of it.
Yeah.
If I have a good time, I have a good time. Like I would like to go into books with the expectation that I have a good time.
Yeah.
And I did with these. Now, that was too much smut for me.
There was a lot. It was even a lot for me because like
I was reading them I was reading some of them at the same time because I listened to Scythe and Sparrow and I read Deep End in Elle Kennedy's book, and like I was listening to Leather and Lark at the same time as reading Deep End, which both had so much smut. And then I moved over to Elle Kennedy's book while I was reading Scythe and Sparrow, and it was like there was so much butt stuff, and there was so like it just, oh my god, it was so much. Yeah, it was too much for me. It was too much for me. I can't do that again.
yeah, and I've mostly been doing fanfic, which ironically has not been like super super smut heavy in
Yeah.
those. Like I've been reading a lot of like full rewrites, and
Right.
obviously the first like 5 books they're not having sex.
I felt like I had a porn addiction
So
this week.
yeah, there was a lot of smut in this.
Yeah.
None of it was poorly written though. Like, and I don't think any of it was like super cringy or anything. It was just like, wow.
It was just a lot. No, actually, I think it was all well written smut. I just like after a couple. When I was finishing listening to Scythe and Sparrow, I was like, man, we're doing this again. Do you people have time for anything else? Because I apparently don't have time for anything other than just listening and reading smut.
For like 3 weeks
For
straight.
3 weeks straight. And it was so much. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
I need to space these out more responsibly.
We
next
do.
time.
We both need to do that. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Give us a like, a subscribe button. It means the world to us. Give us a comment with what you thought of the podcast episode and all the books we read. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok, although we're not super active on those. But you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. So thanks for being here, and have a great rest of your night.
Bye.